And welcome to episode number 47 of Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels from Sandusky, Ohio, and I'm glad that you're listening. Well, we're sprinting to the finals right now with only 2 rounds left, and the first game of this round begins in about 9 hours from where I'm recording this, so I wanted to make sure I got this out before the first game was played, so people want to listen to it then. Before I get into my tips for round 17, I wanted to touch on a couple stories that came out this week, and I also wanted to recognize that today is Are You OK Day. I put the link to the Are You OK page in the show notes, and I strongly encourage you to check in with your friends to make sure that they're okay, to touch base with them, because we are all having issues of our own during these difficult times. Okay, so check in on your friends. Hopefully they'll check in on you as well. And let's dive into the stories this week. Now, first off, after watching the Dockers and D's matchup at Cazaly Stadium, I've got a question to ask because I don't know the answer to this one. Are they allowed to actually play footy in Cairns when it doesn't rain? Since I've started watching the game over the last 4.5 years or so, I've watched a handful of games that have been played there, and I can't seem to recall a single game that's been played where there has not been torrential rain from a monsoon or something of that nature going on. Now, I know that Cairns is in the tropics. It's above the Tropic of Capricorn. I've got a background in geography. I have a degree in geography, so it's one of the courses I teach at school. And I did a little digging, and it looks as though August and September are part of what would be considered the dry season. It looks like December, January, February are the wet season there. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. And maybe this year it's simply the footy gods that are trying to make sure that the Dockers play in as many uncontrollable downpours as possible. They had that horrible weather against Geelong several weeks ago where nobody could hold on to the ball. And it was just, they muddled through. They got themselves a win, but it was pretty ugly weather that they were playing in. So hopefully next time they go to Cairns, we can actually get some sunshine. That would be a nice change of pace. So the second thing I wanted to delve into today was looking at the report that came out this week regarding club membership, because it's been reported now that overall there was a 6.1% drop in team membership and club membership this year. And 7 of the 18 teams saw increases in their memberships, with Gold Coast having the highest jump percentage-wise. Now, theirs is still the lowest, but they had a big jump, and I think that that's going to happen again in the future as well. And the Eagles ended up becoming the first non-Victorian club to have the largest overall membership, and they went over 100,000 this year. What was miraculous was seeing what happened with Essendon and with Melbourne. They had drops of over 26% in their club membership this year. And before you chime in to mock your club's rivals and their membership and that sort of thing, I think we need to look at it. It's fair to say that it's the horrific events that have gone on with COVID-19 and the inability for a lot of these clubs to get fans into the stands that have led to the drop in membership. Because if I'm not mistaken, many of the memberships, when you purchase them, there is a ticket allocation that goes along with that. That me having an international one, that doesn't matter here for me. But maybe a lot of people decided not to buy memberships because of the fact that they could not get tickets to go along with the games. Now, 8 of the 10 Victorian clubs saw drops in their memberships. And the 2 that saw increases, Carlton and St. Kilda, they saw some significant improvement on the grounds. Their performance was better on the grounds this year, so that might have led to some of the increases. The increase in excitement in the fan base. So that might have led to them having a little bit of a boost in their membership rolls this year. Now the Suns, I think they're going to see an even bigger turnaround next year. They went up 15% this year. I think it might even be higher next year because they that's a club that I think is going to continue to get better. And I think the fact that the league played much of the season in Queensland is only going to help them with their membership base going forward. Now, I don't know if this information has been released anywhere, but I would love to see the international membership figures. To see whether or not the fact that this game was being played not being played, but being broadcast in so many different places on a much grander scale than it had been in the past, that maybe that helped to bring about an increase in international memberships. Now, I know that I've talked to a few people on my podcast, and I've interacted with them on Twitter and on Facebook, that they became international members. So, I'm not saying that I did my part, but I like I said, I've talked to some people that decided to become supporters of their new favorite club. So that's fantastic. I hope that continues. I hope there's more of that going forward next year. And I wish, quite frankly, it hadn't taken me a couple of years to figure out that it was actually less expensive for me to get the Watch AFL app by becoming a Cats International member. Because it's actually like $25 more expensive to get the Watch AFL app as a standalone than it is to get the membership and get the Watch AFL app code that allows you to log in and watch the exact same things. Plus, you get the swag from the club as well. Now, I'm looking forward to renewing as soon as I can. And, I hope that all of you that are here in the States, or if you're in Europe or somewhere else in the world, and you've become a fan of the game, I hope that you go ahead and get that international membership, get the Watch AFL app so you can watch all of the games, watch all of the programs that go along with it. Again, those are, they've got all the games live and on demand, so if you don't catch the game live, you can go back and watch it some other time. If you want to go back and watch a game from 3 or 4 years ago, they're on there. And hopefully they'll leave the classic games on that they had earlier this year, because they were playing like the top 50 games of the last decade and a half or so that were up on the Watch AFL app that Fox Footy was putting out. And those are going to be great to watch over the winter months here, to go back and see some of those games and learn some of the names and faces of some of the people that played previously, and see some of the people who are veterans now when they were younger. Now, the thing I'm wondering, and I don't know how this would work logistically, because, the Watch AFL app, it's run by Fox Footy, but they also carry the games that are broadcast on Channel 7. So they've got all the games there, whether they're on Channel 7 or Fox is carrying them. And I think it would be great if Fox Footy could figure out a way to also carry the Footy Classified game or show, as well as the Front Bar. And I've only seen snippets of both of those shows. I've heard good things about both of them. I'd love to hear, more about what Cane Corns is all about. And, it would, I think it would be just, the Front Bar is one that looks like it would be a lot of fun to watch. It looks like they have a good time on that one. I've not had a chance to watch that one in depth at all. So maybe Fox Footy can figure out how to get those programs from Channel 7 onto the Fox Footy app as well, since they're already having the games on there. I don't know if that would work out or not. Now, it was really sad to see the injury that occurred with Irving Mosquito this weekend. He had a non-contact injury where he looks like he tore, I think they did say he tore his ACL in his left knee. And it was a really sad start to, a promising beginning to what I think is going to be a great career. And he'd only played a handful of games, but he was extraordinarily exciting. He was lightning quick, and hopefully that speed is still there when he recovers from this injury. But it's a shame to see that happen. But there were some great things that happened. The Crows won their second game in a row. Unfortunately, I did not tip them this round. I picked GWS. Sorry about that, Crows fans. I have made some comments on the Crows Twitter pages about how impressed I've been with the way that the club has been playing. They've been playing hard. They've been playing inspired. Matthew Nix has got that club playing, looking forward to the future. Riley O'Brien, I think I'd mentioned him before, is quietly becoming a dynamic ruck for the Crows. He had a great game this past week against GWS. Okay, and I think he's going to be become a ruck that people talk about going forward. And he was all over the grounds too. He had a lot of distance that he covered. Now, as I mentioned before, like I said, the Crows are playing some exciting footy, and I think that it's safe to say that they're maybe the one team that's going to finish outside the 8 that doesn't necessarily want to see their fixture come to an end. I think they'd like to continue playing and see this season go on. Not so they could move up the ladder, but so they could get more experience. I think that they played extraordinarily well. Granted, they've got a tough game this week with Carleton. We'll see what happens there. Now the Blues, as I'd mentioned, they decided this week that they wanted to go out in round 17 and imitate what the Cats had done the previous week to the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs jumped out to a huge lead of, 40 points in the second quarter? The Blues had basically the same thing happen to them with the Swans. The Swans jumped out to an almost 40-point lead in the second quarter, and the Blues battled back, and they got back to even shortly after the fourth quarter had started. And it was really impressive because, I was watching part of that game at school. I was watching the first half, and I was like, well, this thing's done. They're not going to win this game. And I went back and I looked at the score later on. I was like, wait a minute, this has got to be a misprint. And no, I went back and watched the rest of the game, and sure enough, the Blues came back and they dominated, and they did what they had to win. And this was a game that they absolutely had to have. If the Blues want to play finals, they had to beat the Swans. If they want to play finals, they've got to beat the Crows this week, and then I believe they've got Brisbane the last week of the season, and they've got to win all three of those, and they need some help, which I'll get into here in a couple of moments. So it was an impressive win there. There's going to have to be several upsets that happen for the Blues to play finals. The bottom line is that they had no shot of playing finals if they didn't beat the Swans this week. So I wanted to dive into the tips for this week. This can be a little bit shorter episode than what I typically have here. I did okay last round. I got 5 out of 8. I missed out on the Eagles, the Crows, and the Blues game. I tipped the Swans in that game, so I thought, hey, this is looking pretty promising for me, because the Swans had been playing fast, they've been playing hard, very similar to what the Crows had been doing. The Swans' big problem right now is that they've got no size. A lot of their talls have been injured pretty much most of the year. So let's go ahead and dive into the games for round 17. The first one, which is actually happening at about 5:50 tomorrow morning my time, which is in about 6 hours. West Coast and St. Kilda, and I've got West Coast winning this game by 10 points. And while both of these clubs are solidly in the top 8, the Eagles still have a decent shot of making the top 4, because 2 of the teams ahead of them still have to play each other. The Cats and Tigers play on Friday night, so there's a possibility that one of those teams loses, that maybe the Eagles could possibly slide into the 4 spot. I don't know if they could make it to 3. I didn't dig into it that far. But the Eagles really need to have Nick Nat back out there. I think he had a sore back the other day and didn't play. And I'm still working on the pronunciation of his name, because I saw the article that he said that the way his name's been pronounced since he's been in the competition has not been correct. So I'm just going to stick with Nick Nat for right now, because I'm probably going to get the name wrong. Now, again, he needs to be out there because half of their midfield is gone. So he needs to be able to get the ball into the hands of the midfielders that are out there to give them an opportunity to have success, because they're going to be missing Elliot Yeo, Dom Sheedy as well. So they're going to need their strong ruck in place to help get them over the hump against St. Kilda, because St. Kilda is very capable of winning this game. Okay, this is this is kind of a toss-up game. Like I said, I've got it being a 10-point game. The Saints certainly can win this, but I think that the West Coast wants to try to see if they can get into the top 4, have that double chance if at all possible. So I think they take it by 10 points. And then we've got Geelong and Richmond. And I've got Geelong winning this one by 2 goals. And this might be a finals preview. Maybe. The Tigers have had another week of distractions, which led to the suspension of 2 players for 10 weeks, 10 rounds of footy. They're out. And I know that being shuttled around to different hubs around the country hasn't necessarily been ideal, but it's allowed them to play the season, or at least most of the season, 17 rounds or 17 games, and in the great grand scheme of things, those teams that are playing finals, like the Tigers, they're at the most 7 weeks away from the season being done, where they're going to be allowed to head home, back to their off-season homes, that type of thing, relax after whatever happens, get to the, through the qualifying finals, get to the second round, maybe get to the, maybe win or lose the finals. I don't know. But I got to ask the question. Was it selfish of these two young men? Callum Coleman-Jones hasn't played a lot. I think he played one game last year. But Sidney Stack has played 9 games this year for the Tigers. He's been an integral part of their lineup. So was it selfish of these two guys to sneak out and go to a strip club and go to a street vendor for food and get into a fight? I don't know. If I was a Tigers supporter, I don't think I can be too happy with these guys. I truly don't. I don't think I could be happy with them at all. Because, bottom line, I'd be furious with what they had done because they're jeopardizing the club's opportunity to be successful. But if you need to laugh at the situation, if you're a Tigers fan and you need to laugh, or if you're just a Footy fan and you need to laugh, I highly recommend the most recent episode. I think it's the round 15-16 episode from the Junk Time AFL podcast. And if you've listened to Junk Time, I had the two gentlemen on the podcast on mine several months ago, and it was absolutely hilarious. I think it's one of the funniest podcasts I've listened to, whether it be a specifically comedy one or not. They take what you're looking at in terms of the issues in footy, and they just skew it just a couple of degrees and put a level of humor on it that many people may not have thought of. And Adam Rosenbach, I believe it was Adam this time, that was pretending that he was kind of like the tour guide that was going around with the two Tigers players and was recounting what went on that night. So if you need a laugh because you want to scream and it's just better to laugh, I would strongly encourage you taking a listen to that episode because it was rather funny. And these two guys, let's be honest, they to use the children's book, they were channeling their inner Lemony Snicket and went out to make their series of unfortunate events take place. Now again, I don't know if Sidney Stack would have played this round or not, but not having him as an option does not help the Tigers. Okay, if you take somebody off of their list and say, well, he's not even an option to play, that can't help your club. I mean, you're not there to practice against the 22 who are going to be out there. That certainly doesn't help your club either. So, yeah, I'm hoping that these guys learned from this mistake. And again, hopefully we never find ourselves in a position where the clubs are locked away in these hubs. Hopefully COVID is something that we laugh about next year. Okay? Now, the Cats, they're playing very well at the moment. And, they might be adding their captain to the 22 this week. Joel Selwood might be back this week. Maybe they hold him out and play him a little bit against Sydney the following week before finals. I'm not sure what's happening with that. I haven't seen any news about that. And they should be getting the little master back. Gaz should be back. I don't know if it's this week or possibly next week. Going back in the lineup. And again, they've been playing well without him. But think about that conundrum that Chris Scott has right now. My team's playing extraordinarily well. And here comes arguably one of the top players of the last 20 years coming back to my side right now saying, hey, coach, I'm ready to go. Where do you put him? Does he play? He has to play, doesn't he? You can't not play Gary Ablett Jr. in a game if he's healthy, can you? I mean, he's been... In terms of footy, he's been managed for the last several weeks. Now, he's been at home with his wife and dealing with his son's illness and that sort of thing, and I hope everything's going well. But if he's able to be back, wow, that could really, really help the club going forward. And it might give them an opportunity for a deep run in the finals as long as Tom Hawkins keeps his elbows to himself. Now, Fremantle and North Melbourne. I've got Fremantle taking this one by 9 points. And while I mentioned back at the beginning in the news clips about how the Crows might not want 2020 to end, I think the Dockers can't wait to get started with 2021. Now, hopefully they're hoping that they can play their home games all at Optus and then go out on the road to play their other games elsewhere. But this is a team that has been playing some stifling defense. They've really done a great job of limiting scoring opportunities of their opponents. And if they can figure out how to strike a balance and get a little bit more offense, I think it's safe to say that this is a club that is likely to be playing finals next year. I think you can probably pencil the Dockers in as a top 8 team next year. Now I don't know if they make top 4, but I think they definitely get into the 5 through 8 round, the 5 through 8 section. So I think you can pencil the Dockers in as a finals team next year. Let's be honest. The Kangaroos, they don't have a whole lot to play for right now, other than pride, other than trying to demonstrate to the list managers that I deserve a spot on this list for next year. So in that case, I fully expect the Roos to make this a game. That's why I've only got it as a 9-point game, because there are players who are playing for their footy lives these next 2 weeks. Because it sounds like lists are going to get smaller, so they need to have the best couple of games of their lives to show that, you know what, I should be part of this going forward. And we'll see if that happens. I don't know. But I still think Fremantle's going to take this one. Now, we've got Port Adelaide and Essendon. I've got Port taking this one by 19 points. The Power, they have the Lions and the Cats nipping at their heels right now for that top spot. So if they slip up, one of those two is ready to jump in there. And this is a good opportunity for them to end the Cats' pursuit of the minor premiership, because the Cats are already a game behind them in the standings. They've got one more loss. So, if Port wins this week, the Cats don't have a shot at being the minor premier, which, hey, we saw what happened with them being the minor premiers last year. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. But, the Power, they've recovered from their loss 4 rounds ago to the Cats, where they got hammered pretty good, and they've won 3 in a row, and I fully expect them to take this game by at least 3 goals. The Bombers have continued to be dysfunctional. They've really struggled, and I think this carries over into these final couple of rounds for them as well. I think they'll be competitive, but I still think Port Adelaide is too strong of a club. They're, again, very similar to what the Roos are doing. They're trying to figure out who's going to be on the list next year, and the big name, of course, is Joe Danaher going to be there. Can they convince Joe Danaher to still be part of this club next year, or is he going to be looking to go somewhere else? And I don't have the answer to that. GWS in Melbourne, I've got the Giants winning this one by 13 points, and let's be honest, Giants fans, you got outplayed totally last week by the Crows. I mean, the Crows just came out and they took it to you, and I don't think you were ready for it. And you came back in the second half and scored some points, but they had built a pretty significant lead. And if the Giants want to play finals this year, they've got to win these 2 final games. And quite frankly, Jeremy Cameron has to look in a mirror and remind himself that, you know what, I won the friggin' Coleman medal last year. I can score goals. I need to start doing that. Because he's been kind of like the invisible man. He's been like an H.G. Wells story here in recent weeks. And he's there's not been a whole lot to Jeremy Cameron's game. And if they're going to make finals, they need him to step up and start scoring some goals for them. So we'll see if that occurs. And again, I think that the Giants have the if they play to their potential, they're going to take this one by a little bit more than 2 goals. Now, the D's, they've lost 3 out of the last 4. They've begun to leak oil. They're definitely not on an upward trend, and I think that they're likely to find themselves outside the 8. But they've still got a shot at it too. They got themselves. They fought their way back into the 8. They've dropped out in the last 3 or 4 weeks. But they still have a shot at making the 8, depending on how some of these other games play out. But I think that GWS finally gets their act together. Leon Cameron knows he's going to be there for another couple of years. He just signed a new contract, and they get themselves back into the finals with a win here. And the next game up is Carlton and Adelaide, and I've got Carlton winning this one by 11. I was really tempted to take the Crows in this game because they've won 2 in a row. They're playing with maybe more confidence than any other team in the comp right now, because they're kind of playing with house money. Nobody's expecting them to win, and they've gone out and won 2 in a row. And they beat a pretty darn good GWS team last week. An underperforming one, but a pretty good GWS team nonetheless. So I almost took the Crows in this, but I think that the Blues are going to be coming back with a lot of confidence after this comeback last week against the Swans. Like I said, this is a must game. They have to win this game if they want to play finals. And even if they win it, they may not, but because they've got to have some things occur, which I'll get into in the next game that I'm going to tip here in a moment. But like I said, they simply cannot afford to lose this one. They actually need some help. They actually, if I'm not mistaken, they need help from Hawthorn in their game with Western, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. But bottom line, if they want to play finals, they've got to take care of their own business first and then see what happens after the fact, okay? Which gets me to Western and Hawthorn. And, well, Blues fans, I'm sorry, but I've got Western winning this one by 21 points. The Bulldogs, they rebounded last week, this last round after that heartbreaking loss to Geelong. I mean, they had the Cats on the ropes. They had, that was... Mickey was there in the corner telling Rocky that he wants to throw in the towel, and Rocky said, nope, let me keep fighting, and they did come back and win. But I think the Bulldogs, again, they're battling for a spot in the 8. They fought back, they knocked off the Eagles this past week, and I see them, the Eagles are a team that a lot of people see as a premiership contender. So, the Bulldogs, like I said, they're pretty much in the same situation as GWS and the Blues. They've got to keep winning. And they've got to win these last 2 games. So, and if my calculations are right, if the Bulldogs win here against Hawthorn, that's going to prevent the Blues from making the finals. And I think it might be vice versa. If the Hawks were to beat Western and Carlton were to beat Adelaide, I think it might actually knock the Bulldogs out as well. I fiddled around with that little squiggle simulator here for the last 2 rounds several times to go through some different scenarios, and I didn't write them down, but I think that the whichever one wins, and if the other one loses, they're definitely knocked out. And again, fortunately for Clarko, his nightmare of a season is about to come to an end, and they can start rebuilding their list. I'm assuming he's going to be back next year. I don't know if they've said anything specifically. We've got 2 more games to go through. We got Brisbane and Sydney, and I've got Brisbane winning this one by 18 points. And Sydney is playing hard. That's a club that I think in the long run they're gonna be better for what they've gone through this year with the injuries and blooding a lot of the young kids, but they just don't have a lot of size right now. And I think this is going to be a great opportunity for Eric Hipwood to have a monster game against Sydney. He had a pretty solid game yesterday, and I think that's going to carry forward into this round against the Swans. I think he's going to kick 3 or 4 goals against them, and I think this is going to be a difficult game for the Swans to win because Brisbane wants to stay top 3, hopefully have an opportunity to play a first-round game at home, because if they finish number 2, whoever they play, they're probably going to be playing them at the Gabba, as opposed to having to go to Port Adelaide or possibly to Optus or maybe to Metricon to play. If they win, they're probably going to play on their home ground. So there's a lot of incentive for them there. And then the last game of the round, Collingwood and Gold Coast, and I've got the Pies winning this one by 14. And by the time the Pies play this game at the end of this round, they're coming off of a 10-day break. And let's be honest, that 10-day break could not have come at a better time for Collingwood, because it's going to probably help them to get some of their walking wounded back into the lineup and get them into the 22. So we might see DeGoey back out here pretty soon. Jeremy Howe has been rumored to possibly be coming back for finals. Is he going to be back at this point in time? I don't know. Maybe he'll be back for round 18, but I think the Pies are too strong here. I think Gold Coast has run out of gas. They're a really young club. They made a lot of mistakes in the game against Brisbane yesterday. They've lost 3 out of 4, and they had a draw in the 5th game out of the last 5. The future's really bright with Gold Coast, but I think the Magpies, they need help. They need this one to help ensure that they stay in the top 8. And they're not likely to find themselves in the top 4, but they can certainly find themselves locking themselves into a spot within the 5 through 8 range, and having that draw as opposed to a loss certainly helps them, because you're going to be ahead of a team who has 1 less win than you do. Okay, so I got Collingwood winning that one by 14 points. And again, those are my tips for this week. Please don't take my advice, because I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, I did a little bit better last week. Last week I got 5 out of 8, and I'm just doing this for fun. Now, ladies and gents, before I wrap up, I do want to remind you, if you want to, you can sign up on the mailing list that I have in the show notes, and you'll be the first ones to get the new episode as it comes out. There's a link in the show notes there for you. It's a little short form with like 3 or 4 questions that ask your name, the club you support, what country you live in, your email address, so I can add you to the contact list. I'd love to add you to that. I have someone working on some designs for some stickers and shirts and things of that nature. I'm hoping to have those back to me in the next week and a half, so I can take a look at them and see if any revisions need to be made. So I'm hoping within the next 4 to 6 weeks to have something set up in one of the online stores that if you're interested in, buying a Yank on the Footy t-shirt or a sticker for your computer or your car window, if you'd be so bold as to do that, I think those will be out there and available for you here very soon. Hoping to, be able to maybe upgrade a little bit of my equipment that I'm using in creating the podcast. Maybe upgrade some of the software that I'm using as well. So if you want to sign up for that mailing list, that'd be great. If you got an idea for a show topic, or if you know somebody that you think would be a great guest, shoot me an email. You can reach me at yankonthefooty@gmail.com. Send me a DM on Twitter, or send me a message on Messenger on Facebook. You can find a Yank on the Footy there. You can find my name on there, Craig Wessels. I live in Ohio, so I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget that while you can find all of the episodes for this podcast at yankonthefooty.podbean.com, you can also find us your favorite podcast provider. So if you like Spotify, you like Stitcher, you like Apple, they're all there. And I'm hoping you'll consider giving me a review on Apple Podcast if you're listening. Maybe go to Apple even if you listen somewhere else, and go on there and say, hey, here's what I like. Maybe here's what could be better. If I earned a 5-star, I'd love to have that from you. If I haven't yet, tell me what I could do better. Okay, I would love to know what I could do better to make this a more entertaining podcast for you. I do want to thank Joseph McDade before I wrap up here for a couple pieces of music that I'm using of his. Using Elevation and Backplate. You can find his music at josephmcdade.com/music. He's also on Spotify as well. He's got some great tunes. But back to the reviews. Like I said, it lets me know what I'm doing well. Lets me know what I can improve upon. And you can, like I said, also reach me at yankonthefooty@gmail.com or on Twitter at yank_on. And again, ladies and gents, I want to thank you for listening. Because while we're fans of our own clubs, deep down we're fans of a game that we all love. That's the game of footy. If you're new to the game, I'm thrilled that you're listening. Several of the guests that I've had on in the podcast in recent weeks and recent months have some great resources. The A to Z Footy podcast, the Kick to Kick podcast. Frode Jernhardt has a great podcast that he's doing, especially if you're a Bulldogs fan. So I'd certainly, encourage you to take a look at those. If you're here in the States, 8 of the 9 games this week are going to be online. I'm not online, but on television. So if you're not checking out the games yet, go for it. I think it's the Adelaide game that's not going to be aired this week. It's the only one that will not be on. And, but again, for those of you in the U.S. and Canada, don't forget that Australian rules football, it's why they invented the DVR. Again, ladies and gents, thank you so very much for listening. I ask that you consider sharing the podcast with your friends and family. Send them a link in a text message. Send them a link in an email. Tell them, hey, you might want to check this out. You might find it interesting. And ladies and gents, may your dribble kick never hit the post. I'll catch you later. This has been episode number 47 of A Yank on the Footy. Don't forget that you can reach me at yank_on or to yankonthefooty@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at A Yank on the Footy. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. I hope you'll consider sharing the podcast with your friends and family. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.